Well, staying now with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we are members of the BRICS group of countries to which Russia is a very senior member. But South Africa also has an obligation to promote the respect and the laws of international armed conflict. So to discuss this diplomatic conundrum from Pretoria, or for Pretoria, we're joined now by international lawyer Mia Swart. Thank you for joining us, Mia, all the way from Doha. Mia, we are signatories to the ICC, as far as I know, and we do have a responsibility to uphold human rights before any of our international memberships, such as BRICS.
Yes, Annika, this is something that I think the South African government hasn't taken account of enough so far in this crisis. South Africa is a member of the UN, first of all, and according to the UN Charter, not only the use of force is illegal, but the threat of force is illegal. So even from the point of Putin mobilizing his forces on the border, this was a violation of international law. We are also party to international humanitarian law treaties, and we see that Putin is now increasingly also targeting civilians. We see residential blocks of flats that have been flattened. We see schools being targeted. So there's, on many, many levels, an obligation on the South African government to speak out against Putin's actions. We also know that South Africa is a member of various human rights treaties, such as the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. And of course, we're a member of the ICC. And we saw very recently that the ICC prosecutor is going to start an investigation into Russia's actions.
There seemed to be some kind of diplomatic back and forth between our Minister, International Affairs Minister Naledi Pandor, issuing a statement saying that, urging Russia to withdraw from Ukraine, and then allegations that she was chastised for doing that. Other BRICS countries, they haven't even gone as far as I can see, such as China, as actually openly supporting Russia.
Yes. I think firstly it's very problematic that President Ramaphosa isn't coming out in an unequivocal way and, really taking a principled position on this, because the principles of humanitarian law are really moral principles that should be upheld universally. I also think it's a problem if the president chastises the Minister of International Relations. This sends out a bad message. I also think that we should not be comparing ourselves to BRICS countries, because certainly countries such as China and Brazil and India at the moment have human rights records that are deplorable, and we should not be in that company to begin with, in my opinion.
What happens now, just in terms of a complaint or an investigation being made with the International Criminal Court on war crimes? I mean, these cases seem to drag on forever, and they don't actually seem to really get very far, often because people aren't signatories to them, or there's difficulty in extraditing some of the main players who are due to be arrested for human rights violations. With this particular one, do you see this investigation against Russia going anywhere?
Well, certainly it's not a short-term solution, and we are now looking at short-term solutions. The European Union has even acknowledged now that sanctions are not even really short-term solutions, and have gone as far as sending weapons and personnel to the Ukraine. These court cases are important, but at this point they're mostly symbolic. One looks at measures that will have a more immediate impact, and as you just said, these cases can drag on for years. But the International Criminal Court is still an important, institution, and we should give it our support. I just think that, South Africa should immediately at least start speaking with one voice on this.
Mia, in terms of our South African nationals being treated apparently badly, especially if they're black at some of the border posts, we're hearing stories about them really struggling to get further than neighbouring countries and get back home. What should South Africa actually be saying on a diplomatic level, and in terms of contacting Russia through diplomatic means in order to, at least advise them to please not carry on with this invasion?
Well, it seems like South Africa should be contacting both the Russian governments and the Ukrainian governments about this. We are a member of the 1951 Refugee Convention, which also means that we have some obligations in terms of, assisting refugees, honoring refugees. But yes, there has been these reports of racism in terms of getting people out of the country, in terms of getting people onto trains. And this is something that the DIRCO should make a statement about. I just think that it's going to, of course, carry more weight if the South African government also condemns the use of force in more unequivocal terms.
As UN members of the UN Security Council, do we have any sort of obligation when it meets to speak out against Putin?
Yes, we know that there's been a Security Council meeting just a few days ago, and that, countries such as India, China, and, of course, Russia didn't, veto the resolution. South Africa, of course, is still a powerful voice, even though resources-wise we are not powerful. We have a powerful moral voice, and I think that we should use that voice. And as I said before, our various international obligations should trump our loyalty in terms of South Africa being a member of the BRICS trade bloc. It should trump considerations of history, because we know that Russia helped South Africa in the struggle. But it's now, many decades on, and we now see a humanitarian crisis, which really goes against all South Africa's, human rights principles.
And shockingly, Mia, just before I let you go, we saw ANC members celebrating 30 years of Russian military, some sort of big celebration at the Russian embassy and at the Russian consulate here in Cape Town last night, and drinking champagne and saying Nostrovia, which is also something that we need to investigate, because it's outrageous in my mind at this time when children are dying. Thank you so much for your time. That was Mia Swart, an international humanitarian lawyer, speaking to us from Doha.